What's up, yos? So, if you read the first Dune book, right? This isn't the first Dune book, but if you read the first Dune book, then you probably liked it because everybody liked the first Dune book. And if you haven't read the first Dune book, read it. It should be on everyone's reading list. Everyone likes it. Like, I've never heard of anyone saying they don't like the Dune book. And honestly, like, if you haven't read the Dune book, and you're into like movies instead, watch the Dune movie. It's a little bit hard to understand, but the Dune movie, not the series, not any of that stuff, the Dune movie with David Lynch, great movie. It's not 100% of the Dune story that's in the book. It's a tiny bit of a percent of the story, but you know what? The first book is like 600 to 800 pages or something like that, and you can't make a movie that long, and it would be boring if you made it that long. I mean, it really would, because I think it works good as a book, but as a movie, it would just blah, 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 blah. We just drag on. And so book number 2 comes out, and I'm like psyched to read it. And I'm like, all right, book number 2. I know there's a lot of books in the series. There's a lot of books, and 8 of them or something like that in the series. But anyway, so I got book 2 right here. I already have it. Don't have to get it. It's right here. I can read it anytime. And this is what I think about this book. Okay, so in the first book, they created this universe. They created this world 10,000 years in the future. They created the people in the world, the characters. There's this one squid guy who's in this tank with this spice gas. And spice is this substance that is essential for space travel. And it also kind of keeps people alive longer. It makes your life longer and longer. The only downside of the spice is you're addicted to it and have to keep ingesting spice. Once you start with spice, you can't stop spice because you got to keep going with the spice. And so there's that, basically. And so there's all these different characters. I mean, if you basically, yeah. So there's all these different characters, right? And so there's Paul Atreides, who's the main character. There's the other people around. There's like different planets. And different planets have different governments and different kings and emperors and things like that, armies and shit like that. And they're all like fighting with each other. And there's like the guild navigators who are in charge of space travel. If you don't get in good with the guild navigators, you can't space travel. They won't let you, and you're like stuck on your own planet. And so it's a huge adventure. It's a huge world. It's interesting, it's exciting, it's fun. I do like the movie because that was my first experience with Dune. And I do understand the movie because I watched it like 3 or 4 times before I understood it. I watched about 3. After watching about 3 times, you get it. You're like, oh, I see what's happening. It's just that in the movie, they say things once and they go on to the next thing like you remember what they said. But it's that way through the whole movie. And unless you have a good memory, really good memory, and you remember like everything they said and how it all puts together, you kind of get lost in the movie. Like, what the hell is going on, right? But honestly, like, they did the best they could with the movie, and I really loved it. I thought the movie was great. One of my favorite movies of all time. And then I was just like, well, everyone's like, oh, the book is better. Book is better. You got to read the book. So I'm like, okay, so I read the book, and it's different. It's a book. It's a novel. It's different. The book is always different than the movie, different than the comic, different than the game. I mean, they're all different. Like, and different than the series. Like, even one movie is different than the same exact subject, same exact movie. Like, a remake is different than the original. It's always going to be different because people are doing it differently. There's different actors, there are different directors, there's different, like, all that kind of stuff going on, right? So, book number 2 comes out. And I'm like, how cool. It's a continuation of a story. There's going to be action. There's going to be suspense. There's going to be fun. There's going to be like all kinds of crazy shit going on. But it isn't. Okay, so basically at the end of the first book, Paul Atreides becomes Muad'Dib. Muad'Dib is the emperor of Arrakis. He basically wins this war, gets control of the spice, which is like whoever controls the spice controls the universe. And so he gains control of the spice because the spice is only local to the planet that he's on. And he's able to use the Fremen who populate that planet. It's a desert planet, not much anything happening on there, to protect the spice. He creates this army of Fremen who protect the spice because they have to like take these spaceships and bring them down, land them on the spice, areas with their spice, and mine spice. And there's these gigantic worms that basically destroy these spice mining occasionally destroy these spice mining spaceships and whatever. And so what Paul Atreides does, he just attacks them, blows them up, so nobody can mine spice. And if nobody mines spice, they're kind of at his mercy because they need spice. They need spice to survive. They need spice to live. They need spice in order to travel through space. They can't travel through space without spice, and they will die without spice. And so he controls it. So he controls the universe, basically. And the universe is not the universe. It's only like 5 or 6 planets, and that's the known universe, right? It's human evolution and the human culture 10,000 years in the future, 5 planets, and they're all kind of close to each other. Well, they're within travel distance of each other with the technology at the time, right? Okay, so that's kind of how it goes. At the end of the first book, he basically takes control of the spice, wins, everything's good, right? And becomes this actual super being, which is like always has been his destiny to become, this messiah, this super being after ingesting spice, after drinking the water of life. And the water of life is what really changed him into the super being, where he's like psychic, he can see the future, he can communicate with the Bene Gesserit witches through the ether or through psychic connections, and can talk to other Bene Gesserit witches who are in power and stuff like that. Get into their head, and stuff like that. Has this daughter who's more powerful than him because the daughter's mother drank the water of life while the daughter was in the womb, and she was born like this super being from it, Really cool, interesting ideas and stuff like that. But second book, here we go. Now the second book, I thought it would be the same thing, nothing like it. It's not the same story. It's the same character, but not the same story. It's Muad'Dib, Paul Atreides, after he's become king of Arrakis. Basically, he's emperor, he's king of that whole planet, all of the Fremen, and it's just about him in his position and the politics around him, his position, the politics around the people around him, the politics around like other planets and what's going on. And people are trying to either they're for him or they're against him. And it's all, and then you have like people talking to each other and then what they're thinking as they're talking, which I think is cool, which I like, because it's like, you don't just hear what someone's saying, you get to hear what they're thinking, which is nice what they do in that book. It's like you get to know what they're thinking as well as what they're saying, because in a movie, you can't really do that effectively, right? It's like, you can, you can kind of like, what someone is saying, but not necessarily what they're thinking. And sometimes it's just like, the person just stays sitting there and like their mouth is closed and then they hear a little bit of a, well, I think this is happening, right? It's sort of like that, but then it gets weird because you don't know like they're saying and then they're thinking, and it's just confusing, right? And so they have in this book basically what people are talking about and what they're thinking. And it's very, very interesting. And also like he's actually reading their mind because he's this super being and he drank the water of life and he's got all this spice. Spice is all over the planet. They're all kind of psychic. They're all kind of mind readers to some degree. They all have these blue and blue eyes, which is like really cool. And I think the blue and blue eyes works better with a movie than it does in the book, because it's better to see that. It's a very visual thing, the blue and blue eyes. Blue, the whole eye is blue, like the sclera and the iris. And so yeah. And so anyway, so I'm reading like basically, like halfway into it, basically. I basically read halfway into it. And nothing is happening. It's just, there's nothing going on. There's no action. There's no adventure. Things aren't changing. It's him in his area, in his throne area. I also think there's like other planets and other kind of leaders of those planets. And are they conspiring against him or are they for him? They're basically all conspiring against him because that's what politics does. People just conspire against everyone else. Everybody wants to be number one and no one wants to be number two. So number two conspires against number one. That's kind of how it works. And nothing is happening in this book. And so if you read the back of it, this is what it explains. It says, like, set in the desert planet Arrakis, which it is, a world is a world as fully real and rich as our own. Dune, okay, whatever. Not really. It's not as it's not as detailed about, it's a world built that they did, but it's not as detailed as our own world. They don't really go into every facet of what's going on. Dune Messiah continues the story of Muad'Dib, heir to a power unimaginable, bringing to completion the centuries-old scheme to create a super being. Now, the whole concept of creating a super being started in the first book, but it actually made sense in the first book because it was like he became from someone that really wasn't a super being, and he became this super being after basically drinking the water of life. Made him this super being. He was already potentially a super being, but that actually made him a super being. You know, he was like kind of psychically powerful and whatever it is. His spirit, his soul was very, very powerful and whatever. And he kind of won the war between him and the other planets that were trying to like mine spice from his planet. But the thing about in the second book, the whole concept of the super being, it doesn't go anywhere. It's like he's a super being, or is he not, and they don't know. The thing about it, and you know, the thing about this book is it doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't say anything. It's just like it's not like it doesn't move. Nothing is happening. Like he's in his world, he's in his like throne room, and he's got his wife, and he's got his daughter, and he's got like the people around him that like kind of like help him, and his advisors, and you know, the people that are also in his cabinet and his boards, and you know, in his regime and things like that. And it's basically people talking to each other, conspiring about each other, you know, and thinking about, you know, having thoughts about what's this other person saying, what are they thinking, you know, things like that. And really nothing is happening. There's no action. There's no adventure. There's nothing. I mean, the only thing that makes this a science fiction story is that it's on another planet and it's 10,000 years in the future. And besides that, there's nothing science fiction about it. They don't even go anywhere with the plot line of him being a super being. They say that he is, but besides him being super psychic and kind of like reading everyone's mind and know what everyone's thinking and knowing what's happening in the universe, you know, the multiverse that he's in, knowing where there's other spaceships are like conspiring to attack, or, you know, like other planets are like conspiring to like amass armies to attack and, you know, and take over Arrakis, which they can't do because the Fremen are such a formidable foe, and he's got these weapons that are kind of sonic weapons. He kind of like, it's kind of a weapon that you kind of yell into it, and it amplifies your voice and creates a sonic blast. And that can blow up. It can blow up people, can blow up like other spaceships and things like that. And because he controls all of the spice, you know, he controls the guild navigators. He controls space travel. So no one can actually like, no one can travel through space without him being in control of it, you know? So there's that. And I can understand why somebody or like Frank Herbert will want to talk about him becoming emperor, and a lot of thoughts about him being emperor, or him being the super being, or him being in charge, or him being in power, you know, and I can understand why they wanted to go on with that and explain about that and talk about that, but I don't know why it's half of the first part of the book. And I'm guessing, because I haven't read the second part, because I don't know if I can get back into it, it's going to be in the second part of the book also. I'm guessing the whole book is just about him being emperor, and just the people, the drama and the people around him and his whole cabinet, all the people that are either for him or against him, his people, the other people, all of the political structures that are in this, surrounding Paul Muad'Dib. They stop talking about what's happening on the other planets, like Harkonnen. They really stop talking about what's going on in other planets, because nothing is really happening in this world. Whereas in the first book, there was a lot of action, there was wars, there was attacks, there was so many there were people trying to escape, and there was like conspiracies and things like that, and you know, Bene Gesserit witches and mentats and all these different creatures and guild navigators and shit like that, right? All these different people that the spice and how it was introduced, this whole amazing world was introduced, and there was a lot of action, there was a lot of adventure, there was a lot of fun to be had. And the second book is like, there's nothing happening. There's no adventure. There's no story. There's just nothing. It's just nothing is happening. People are sitting around thinking and talking to each other, and going about their day-to-day lives, in this world. You know, the world isn't being built anymore. Like, the world has been built, and the world that they built is not being utilized to make interesting stories within this world, because they kind of disregarded the whole world that they built, and they're just focusing on the kingdom of Paul Atreides, the kingdom of Muad'Dib, the people around him, and how he wants to maintain power, and how some of the people around him, either they're for him or against him, they want to take over, and what they're thinking, and all the different intricacies and like subtleties and all of the different political things that are happening around that situation. And I think it's just been going on for just way too long, you know? So let me know what you guys are thinking. If you read the second book of Dune Messiah, of Frank Herbert's Dune, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. I doubt that this book is going to get a lot of action, but I don't know. It kind of is what it is. I really like the first book. Second book, can't really get too far into it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. Share my videos if you want. Click notifications so you know when I'm making a video, so it'll notify you. And yeah, have a great day, and I will see you guys in another video later.